Welcome to the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. I'm your host, Marty Beniaz. For over 200 years, Western New York has cultivated a rich tradition in brewing and is thriving in the current craft brew industry. Today, we'll go behind the scenes and look at some local breweries. We'll take a look into the history of Western New York brewing and learn a few things you probably didn't know about beer. Our first brewer is bringing the tradition of West Coast brewing right here to Western New York. Let's catch up with Carl. He's the owner of Pressure Drop Brewing.
My name's Carl Colby. I'm the head brewer of Pressure Drop Brewing in Buffalo, New York. Started Pressure Drop Brewing in 2017. Previously, I was living in Northern California, and I was brewing for a company out there called Need Eat Brewing Company. I was there for about 3 years, and I used all that time to basically learn every single thing that I could in order to create my own brewery. 3 years of brewing, cellaring, cleaning, and then also doing sales, working in the tasting room. Every single aspect of the business that I could get my hands on, I did. With living in Northern California, there's a very specific style that we do out there, and that's West Coast IPAs. It's crisper, it's lighter, it's drier, it's sticky, skunky, dank. The yeast itself is like much more neutral, and you're looking for an IPA that's just more refreshing, you know? Something that you can just absolutely crush. It's crisp, it's clean, it's just absolutely beautiful, but at the same point, it's so very heavily hopped that the hops just shine through on the front end with just like that nice little touch of bitter on the finish that just lets you know that it's an IPA. The first beer that we ever actually brewed here was Strummer, which is our Belgian blonde ale. The second beer we ever brewed here was Sticky Trees. But the core beers that we make like all the time that are available year round is Strummer, which is a beautiful light crisp Belgian blonde ale. It's got like just a little hint of banana and clove on the nose. It's not overwhelmingly Belgian, it's much more approachable. It's real gateway craft beer. Sticky Trees, obviously the West Coast flagship. Then another core beer that we actually came out with about a year and a half ago is Sticky Icky. So that is Sticky Trees, like kind of almost twin, but very different at the same time because it's different water chemistry, it's different yeast, but it's still all the exact same grains, it's all the exact same hops, but it comes out way softer, way juicier, but at the same point it's still got a little bit of that West Coast vibe to it where it's like kind of skunky and dank and it's got all that goodness going on. We do a lot of seasonals, right? So we'll do a beer for like October. It's called October Harvest. So that's like an Oktoberfest inspired ale. We also do our Black Delicious for wintertime. So that is our Belgian Imperial Stout that we make that we then also age in local spirit barrels. We actually brew it in the summertime and then we load it all into spirit barrels for the release. So we do 3 different spirit barrels. They're all from local distilleries. We also do a lot of sours in the summertime. Here today, we're in our beautiful production facility, which is a 20-barrel brew house, and we have 5 40-barrel tanks over there. So typically we brew twice in a day in order to fill one of the tanks up, and that's approximately 1,200 gallons worth of beer that we brew every single time. We did just open our brand new tasting room brew pub restaurant. It's at 1672 Elmwood Avenue, right in between Amherst Street and Hurdle, right across the street from the Pierce Arrow complex. It's a real opportunity for us as a business to put a face on the company. Our staff is just absolutely amazing through and through. Our head chef is just absolutely killing it in the kitchen. The food is ridiculous. I like to tell everybody that we have good beer over there, but the best brunch in the city. But at the same point in time, you can always get some amazing tacos and sliders and loaded fries and all sorts of fun stuff over there too. So right now, Pressure Drop we're expanding new markets, we're signing new distributors, we're growing across New York State as far as where we're selling beer. I mean, it's a bright future for us right now. We're super duper excited about everything that's going on.
National Beer Day is celebrated annually in the United States on April 7th, commemorating the signing of the Cullen-Harrison Act of 1933, which allowed the distribution and sale of beer with an alcohol content of 3.2%. 9 months later, Prohibition came to an end with the ratification of the 21st Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Welcome back to the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. Next, we'll take a look at history of brewing in Western New York with brewing historian John Ice. He's got an amazing collection of early advertising dating back all the way to the turn of the century.
Breweries didn't really advertise in the early days. The actual advertising didn't really get going until like about 1890, where all the kinds of things that we as brewery collectors collect today, the beer trays and the signs and all that sort of thing. And even then they were pretty simple back in the 1890s. You got into 1900 before they really started big time producing, where they thought that the other breweries are doing it, we have to do it. So it became big at that point in time. Then it was ended, of course, Prohibition. So after Prohibition in 1933, the breweries opened up again, and then people collect the stuff from that period in time. Back before the Prohibition, all the advertising for the breweries was done in a style called lithograph. And in fact, all pictures and advertising, everything was basically done with the lithograph system, which took each individual color and printed it, usually using like a stone that it had been carved into, onto the paper, then another color and different, to match them down to make these, what I think are just beautiful trays. And that's the pictures, the lithographs do a phenomenal job of making these things look really classy and alive. Whether it's brewery things that you collect or whatever it was from those periods of time, that style, that idea. And the other stuff that they did was basically hand done, where they painted everything by hand. One of the breweries in Buffalo was the Iroquois Brewery, which actually started around 1830, but originally when they incorporated and became the Iroquois Brewery was around 1880. And when they started advertising, they wanted to display a Native American. And for whatever reason, I guess it was everyone did it back then, there was what they called the European style of Native American, that picture of a head. And it was like a European, a person that was from Europe with a headdress on. So they decided to change and portray an actual person who looked like a Native American as far as the head on the Iroquois advertisements. And a gentleman, an artist by the name of Nick Schwab, who happened to be the nephew of the mayor of Buffalo during Prohibition, Frank Schwab, Francis X. Schwab, his nephew, and was a very good artist. And he provided the new Iroquois, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Anybody who lives in Buffalo has seen the new style of Iroquois Native American head, which was very, very much looked like you might expect a Native American to appear. I don't think the Iroquois actually wore those kind of headdresses that they use, but nevertheless, he did end up doing all the advertising for Iroquois Brewery, and all the billboards around that you see and everything, or you saw at that time. That was all his work, and a lot of the other advertising was his work. So it was quite something, and that was the reason everything changed. But he always portrayed the Native American as a very noble individual. They're very careful about that in Iroquois' days until the end, when it was sold to another company. And then they changed a few things in the way they advertised him. But originally, he and the brewery owners were very careful to have a lot of attention on the fact that it was a noble individual they were looking at and talking about.
Our next local brewer is Butera's Village Brewhouse in Hamburg, where Jimmy and his team are teaming up to perfect the art of small batch brewing. and continuing the fine European tradition of brew pubs with some amazing brick oven pizzas.
So back in 2006, I had an opportunity to open a pizzeria, which we ran successfully for 10 years. And in 2015, there was an opportunity, and we went from a takeout delivery pizzeria to a full-service restaurant in 2015. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was given permission by the state liquor authority to brew beer, and we've been brewing beer since 2020. So one of the first beers we brewed when we came on in 2020 was a pandemic porter. It's a porter with raspberry mixed in with it, very nice, easy drinking porter. Another one, and one of my favorite, is a light lager. We call it America. So we're a craft beer. We only serve craft beer in-house here, no domestics. So we wanted to create a beer that anybody could walk in and off the street, and because we don't have one of their domestic beers that they like, we have something that they will be able to drink. So we created America. It's a light lager, easy drinking, crisp, clear. You know, we move on to the Pride and Punish. Pride and Punish is a traditional IPA. It's got some more of a piney taste than a flowery taste. It is an award-winning IPA that won an award some years ago on a home brewer circuit. The Hef is actually an amazing Hefeweizen beer. It's got a real banana front with some clove in the finish there. Very traditional. We also brew our homemade root beer, which you know, every kid loves to come and have a beer with dad, so having a root beer on tap is always a pleasure. And then one of our other excellent IPAs is Kickstart Your Hops. This is a hazy IPA that is florally and you know, rich in drinking. We just started a series called Land of the Free, and every few months we're going to find an American-style beer to brew. And so we'll change it up. We'll have a Kentucky Common, we'll have a California Common, and other American-style beers, you know, pre-Prohibition, that we could brew and just pay homage to, you know, the land of the free. So we have a Spike Nano brewery. It's a one-barrel system. We could brew one batch of beer at a time. We have 6 fermenters, so we can ferment up to 6 at one time. It's enough beer to supply the restaurant with a little extra if we want to, you know, sample it out to other restaurants or other bars out there. But for the most part, it's a beginning stages of a brew house, if you will. If you've ever been overseas, especially in Germany, every pub you walk into brews their own beer. It's not like here where you got, you know, all these main core beers that everybody tries. You walk into a bar in Germany and you're gonna get something different in every bar because they all brew their own. So our one barrel system is equivalent to what pubs do in other countries. You know, always looking to expand, and we're always looking to grow. We've been brewing for about 2 years now, almost 3 years, and you know, the next step is a bigger system. Right now we're a 1-barrel batch. We would love to get into a 20-barrel system, do a full production thing, you know, and that's kind of where we're driving the ship to.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. But first, here's another fact about beer that you might not know about.
Beer was an important part of life in ancient Egypt, dating back to 5000 BC. Aside from use in daily meals and festivals, beer was used as an offering to the gods and was featured prominently in banquets and funerals. Temples would brew their own beer to be used by the souls of the dead to take with them on their journey to the afterlife.
Welcome back to the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. Now we'll visit with another local historian, Peter Jablonski, who has an impressive collection of brewing memorabilia and history dating back from the early days of brewing in Western New York.
My name's Peter Jablonski. I'm president of the Greater Buffalo Bottle Collectors Association. One of Buffalo's first breweries was Joseph Webb, which started in 1811 in Black Rock. The brewery probably burned during the War of 1812, but the actual first brewery in the city of Buffalo was probably Captain Docks, who actually was a captain during the War of 1812, and his brewery was located at Morgan and Mohawk. Morgan is now South Elmwood. His brewery then was taken over by Hargrave and Lee. So Hargrave and Lee were also grocers, and it was common for, at this early time in Buffalo history, for brewers to have more than one business, because in the hot summer months they couldn't brew because there was no refrigeration. So Hargrave and Lee, they would use the ash from the brewing and they would make candles. So that was one of their side businesses. So this is ovoid stoneware piece. It's a very early piece of Buffalo history. This dates to 1830. One of the next early breweries in Buffalo was Heiser and Holzer. They were located on Carroll Street in Buffalo. And again, they could not brew when it was very hot in the summer. So they had a stoneware manufacturing business, and the stoneware company was Godfrey Heiser, who came from Germany. So this is an example of an early ovoid jug from the Heiser pottery. It then was taken over by his brother John Heiser, and then it later became the Braun pottery. But the Heiser and Holzer brewery burned in 1856. And it was very common to have fires in the breweries because these ovens where they were drying the malt would overheat and it would cause fires. So for example, the Phoenix Brewery in Buffalo, it was originally Albert Ziegel Brewery, which when it caught on fire, they renamed it Phoenix after the mythological character which rose from the ashes. If you live in Buffalo, you know that there's just about a bar in every corner. And the reason there was a bar in every corner is Buffalo's location on the Great Lakes made it a perfect place for brewing because they could get shipments of barley from the Midwest and from Canada, and also the early German and Irish immigrants that were used to drinking beer, and also that was their industry. So the source of water, the source of ice from the lakes that they needed, and there were many breweries had ice caves. And during construction, for example, of the subway, they discovered caves that were from the breweries where they were storing beer in the summer months to keep it cold. And of course, the Erie Canal, that increased the size of the city and the number of people who were drinking beer. And also we talked about Heiser pottery. They could not make the stoneware until the Erie Canal came in and they could ship the quality clay from Long Island and from New Jersey.
Before we go, let's take a look at today's show sponsor, the Tinderbox. The Tinderbox has been around since 1928 and has been the go-to store for beginners and connoisseurs alike. Now over to Jim Wiedenbeck, who will tell us a little bit more about the Tinderbox.
Back in 1995, my father felt there was a need for a premium cigar shop in Western New York. He had a job that traveled all through the U.S. and there was really nothing in Western New York. He retired from his day job and we opened the business. We feel we got one of Western New York's largest selection. We also felt the need for that in that when we went to other cities and stuff, the selection was definitely a lot larger than anything we had seen in Western New York, and we wanted to be that premium selection. There's three main growing regions cigars come from: Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, and Honduras. Back in '95, most of the cigars came from the Dominican, and it seems that as people's tastes, evolved, Nicaraguan tobacco became more sought after just because it's a little more complex, a little more character to it, where Dominican cigars tend to be the milder ones on the market, which are good for, occasional smokers or new cigar smokers. Almost in the beginning, we were approached by Davidoff to be a white label dealer. We're exclusive to Western New York, and actually we're exclusive pretty much to the Niagara region. The closest store is Syracuse, or you actually got to leave the state and hit up Pittsburgh. So we're an exclusive Davidoff retailer, which is a high-end cigar, and quite an honor to carry. We do get usually a large selection of limited cigars. And they, again, tend to come around the holidays, Father's Day, Christmas. So we have one of the largest selection of rare cigars, whether it's in the Fuente, Opus X, Oliva, even rare Cohibas and Monte Cristos. I would say not only next to one of the largest cigar selections in Western New York, our accessories. We feature at least 3 different manufacturers of lighters, which are lifetime warranty lighters, large selection of humidors, leather carrying cases, travel humidors, and again, other accessories, whether it's the Boveda humidifiers, digital hydrometers, and quite a knowledgeable staff to help you. Our lounge is a public lounge. The only rule per se is that you do have to purchase the cigar from us to use our lounge. We have some of the more comfortable lounge chairs in Western New York. Our chairs are from Dream Seat, which you'll find in a lot of professional sports locker rooms. Quite comfortable chairs. We got bar seating too. We just installed a new HVAC system that is absolutely wonderful. Probably the best in Western New York. So it really does help minimize the smoking in the store. Just like everybody else is doing, we do have what's called a Connoisseurs Club. It's a loyalty program. You get a point for every purchase, and eventually when you get to a certain dollar amount, you start getting $5 coupons, if you will, which will be off your total purchase. We have quite a large selection of pipe tobacco, whether it's aromatic and some English blends. Our pipe selection, we try to keep up on our pipe selection. At times it is quite large, especially around the holidays. We try to thicken up with pipes. And again, those accessories, whether it's pipe lighters, cleaners, carrying cases for pipes. We try to feature several in-store events. They usually happen a lot more during the summer because of the sales reps or the cigar celebrities traveling more so during the summer. But we try to feature large events at least once a month. Those events will include buying events. Swag has gotten quite popular with the manufacturers, so usually not only are there gratis cigars involved with a purchase, there's usually very nice items, whether it's lighters, humidors, or large raffle prizes.
In 1767, English scientist and philosopher Joseph Priestley noticed gases rising from the big vats of beer at a brewery, and he asked to do some experiments. By suspending a bowl of water over a beer vat, he infused the water with carbon dioxide. This led to the discovery of 10 new gases, including nitrogen, carbon monoxide, and oxygen.
Thanks for watching the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. We'll see you next time.